The moment that changed everything happened in a narrow bakery aisle, under flickering fluorescent lights, where hope felt thinner than the soles of worn-out shoes. A single mother stood frozen, shoulders tight, breath shallow, clutching a small box she already knew she would put back. Her whisper was barely sound at all, more like a thought that escaped her chest by accident, a confession to the air that she could not afford her child's birthday gift. She did not know that just a few steps away, a man who controlled boardrooms, markets, and futures was watching her reflection in the glass, and that this small, almost invisible moment would unravel a life he thought he understood and rebuild two others from the ground up. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when strangers choose compassion, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us humanity still matters. She had learned to move quietly through the world, this woman, as if taking up too much space might cost her something she could not afford to lose. Her days began before sunrise, when the city was still rubbing sleep from its eyes, and ended long after dark, when exhaustion wrapped itself around her like a heavy coat she could never take off. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3 when she could find them, stitching together a life for her child out of short shifts, long bus rides, and endless calculations. Rent, groceries, school supplies, electricity. There was never room for extras, never space for mistakes. Every dollar had a destination before it even reached her hands. Her child's birthday was approaching, a date circled in red on a calendar that hung crookedly in their small apartment. The child had never asked for much, only the simple things children ask for when they trust the world to be gentle. A small toy seen through a store window weeks earlier had become the center of that trust. The mother had smiled then, nodding, promising nothing and everything at the same time. But as the days passed and the numbers refused to bend, the promise turned into a weight pressing down on her chest. That was how she ended up in the bakery section of a modest store, holding a discounted box with a faded ribbon, calculating how many meals it represented, how many hours she would need to work to replace it. Her whisper escaped when she realized even this small kindness for her child was beyond reach. She did not cry. She had learned long ago that tears cost energy she needed to survive. She simply closed her eyes for a second, letting the disappointment pass through her like a cold wind, and prepared to put the box back. Across the aisle stood a man whose name appeared on magazine covers and financial news tickers, though he was dressed plainly now, deliberately invisible. He had come to the store on a whim, craving the anonymity he could rarely afford. His life was built on numbers, projections, and decisions made at a distance. He had grown used to controlling outcomes, to winning. But the reflection he caught in the glass stopped him cold. He saw a woman carrying the weight of the world with no safety net beneath her, and something about the quiet dignity of her struggle cracked a door he had kept sealed for years. He did not step forward immediately. Instead, he watched as she placed the box back on the shelf with care, as if apologizing to it, as if it were alive and might forgive her. He watched her straighten her shoulders and turn away, her face composed in that practiced way people wear when they cannot afford to fall apart in public. In that moment, the man remembered his own childhood, the years before success. When his mother had done the same calculations at a kitchen table, when pride and love wrestled silently over small, everyday choices. The memory unsettled him. He followed her at a distance as she moved through the store, selecting only essentials, comparing prices with the precision of someone who had no margin for error. At the register, she counted bills twice before handing them over, her hands steady despite the tension in her jaw. When she left, the man stood still, heart pounding with an unfamiliar urgency. He realized that for all his power, for all the wealth he had accumulated, he had been standing on the sidelines of humanity, watching rather than participating. What happened next was not loud or dramatic. There were no grand speeches, no cameras. He paid for the gift, for groceries, for more than she had allowed herself to dream of, arranging it quietly through the store manager, ensuring her pride would not be wounded. But he did not stop there. Something in him had shifted, and he knew that a single act, however generous, would not be enough to answer the question now echoing in his mind. How many others were whispering their struggles into the air, unheard? The mother discovered what had happened only when she reached the exit and was gently stopped, informed that there had been a mistake, that her purchase had been taken care of, that there was more waiting for her. Confusion washed over her, followed by disbelief, then a cautious hope she was almost afraid to touch. She looked around for an explanation, for a catch, but found none. All she could do was accept, her composure finally cracking as gratitude and relief flooded through her. The gift made the birthday brighter than she had imagined, not because of its price or appearance, but because it restored something fragile and precious. Her child's laughter filled the small apartment, bouncing off the walls, transforming the space into something warmer, something closer to a home. For the first time in a long while, the mother allowed herself to sit and simply watch, her heart full in a way that eased the ache she had carried for so long. But the story did not end there. The man reached out through intermediaries, offering opportunities rather than charity. He had learned, through his own rise, that dignity mattered as much as resources. He helped her find stable work with fair hours, childcare support, and room to breathe. He connected her with education programs, financial guidance, and a community that understood her journey. He did not position himself as a savior. Instead, he chose to walk alongside her, using his influence to remove barriers she had been battling alone. The changes were not instant. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, nights when exhaustion still threatened to pull her under. But there was also growth. She learned to plan beyond the next bill, to imagine a future that was not defined solely by survival. Her child thrived in the stability, confidence blooming where uncertainty had once lived. Small traditions formed, simple joys reclaimed. Life remained imperfect, but it was no longer hopeless. For the man, the encounter reshaped his understanding of success. He began to look beyond profit margins and shareholder reports, asking harder questions about the impact of his choices. He invested in programs that supported families like hers, creating pathways rather than publicity. He listened more, spoke less, and allowed empathy to guide decisions he once made with cold efficiency. The whisper he had overheard became a constant reminder that real power lay not in control, but in compassion. Years later, their lives continued on separate paths, intersecting only occasionally, but the bond forged in that quiet moment endured. The mother carried forward the lesson that asking for nothing did not mean she deserved nothing, that her worth was not measured by her bank balance. She became an advocate for others, sharing resources, offering understanding, turning her own pain into purpose. The child grew up with a story that shaped their values, not of rescue, but of kindness meeting courage at exactly the right time. If this story is touching your heart right now, if you feel that familiar ache of emotion mixed with hope, please take a moment to engage with this video. Your likes, shares, and comments help these stories reach people who may be whispering their struggles today, wondering if anyone hears them. Just before we end, leave a comment sharing one small act of kindness you believe can change a life, because your words might inspire someone watching to take that step. In a world that often moves too fast to notice the quiet battles around us, this story stands as a reminder that listening can be revolutionary. A single whisper, almost lost to the noise of everyday life, became the catalyst for transformation because one person chose to stop, to see, and to care. Lives were not changed by wealth alone, but by the recognition of shared humanity. And perhaps the most powerful truth of all is this: kindness does not require permission, only attention. When we give that freely, we create ripples that travel farther than we will ever know.